All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and being here. Sorry, I am 2 minutes past the hour in true technology fashion. I was all set up, and then tech decided to go kaput on me right before we got on. I hope you're all having an amazing Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. We are going to be celebrating tonight with my daughters with some tacos at a new restaurant right by our house. We're so excited about. I just want to thank you all so much for being here and for everything that you all have done to support this book, have done to support me, and are continued here on this journey. And thank you so much to ATD and ATD Press for believing in me and for publishing this book and being such an amazing partner throughout this entire process. This is a process that actually started, I want to say February or January, February of 2024. So this is a very long time coming. This is probably one of the most meaningful days of my professional life and actually my personal life, coincidentally. It's the launch day of the book, Building a Culture of Evaluation, the new Kirkpatrick Model for Performance and Innovation. I want to just kind of start by saying a few things that may surprise you for this launch event. We're not going to spend the next time together about 30 minutes talking about the book. We're going to spend it talking about the problem that the book exists to solve. Because if that problem isn't real to you, the book won't be either. I've been working in this space since 2009, and since 2018, when I went out on my own with Anchored Training, I have had a version of the same conversation probably hundreds of times. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure my screen is sharing for you all, and we will continue on. There we go. Perfect. So this conversation that I've had over and over again, it's been had with L&D directors, it's been had with chief learning officers, it's been had with instructional designers, heads of HR, operations, even tech, in different industries, different continents, and different contexts. And the conversation is almost always comes back to the same gap. Organizations will spend enormous amounts on programs designed to change behavior and drive results. Yet when someone, such as a CFO, a board member, asks the simplest possible question, did it work? The room goes kind of quiet. Not because people don't care, but not because the work wasn't done, but because most organizations have never built the discipline to actually answer that question. And that's what today is all about. Today is about how do we answer the question, did it work? So let me show you where we're going today, and then we'll dive straight in. So the next 24, 25 minutes, we're going to move through these 6 things. And I want to be very clear and upfront that this is not a theoretical conversation. You will see in the book, I am not a ton of theory. I am practical, and here is how we solve the problem. Every section will have a practical payoff. By the time we get to the end, you will have 3 concrete things you can do this week. Not next quarter, this week. So section 1, we've got the problem, why organizations can't answer, did it work? And why that gap is more expensive than most leaders actually realize. Then we're gonna talk about the diagnosis, 3 specific assumptions that are at the root cause of the problem. You'll recognize all 3. Your organization is probably operating under at least one of them right now. Section 3 is the discipline. We're gonna talk about something that I really haven't talked about a ton before. We're going to talk about the new discipline that we are embarking upon here at Kirkpatrick Partners called Enterprise Performance Intelligence. We're talking about what it is, what it isn't, and what changes when an organization builds the discipline of generating real intelligence instead of just collecting data. And then section 4, we're going to talk about the Kirkpatrick model. what's changed, what's been updated, and what it looks like to apply a 60-year-old model beyond learning and development and into the enterprise. We're going to then talk about the culture, right? And we're going to talk about, because, culture is, the model's going to tell you what to measure, but culture is actually going to tell you or help you actually make it happen. And then we're going to talk about section 6. I know it's Tuesday, but we always have a Monday kickoff at Kirkpatrick, so we call it our Monday move. So 3 specific immediate actions. Then I'm going to take your questions, and the last 5 minutes of the session belongs to you, but to be honest, I have nothing to do until noon, so I'm happy to stay on for anybody who has any questions. So I want you to actually think about this number, not a ballpark, but a real number. Think about every training program your organization runs, every leadership development initiative, every technology rollout even. Think about, every now AI implementation, every change management effort, every culture program your organization runs, every onboarding system. Add it up, even approximately. For most mid-size organizations, you are looking at millions of dollars. For larger organizations, tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions when you factor in systems, the vendors, the internal hours, the lost productivity during rollout. Now here's the follow-up question. And this is the one I really want you to sit down with. Of all that investment, can you tell me with evidence what changed as a result? Not what was delivered, not what was completed, not how many people attended or how satisfied they are. What actually changed? In most organizations that we work with, the honest answer is not really. And it's truly not for lack of effort. I see such amazing people trying and learning and upskilling and going through all of the certification programs and doing the work, really doing the work to believe in it. It's because the systems and practices of most organizations that most organizations have built are designed to measure activity and not return or impact. They'll have completion rates, they'll have adoption dashboards, they have satisfaction scores, they even have status reports and quarterly reviews. But what they don't have is intelligence, a clear evidence-based understanding of which investments produced measurable results, why those results occurred, and what would need to happen for those results to be replicated somewhere else. See, most organizations are data rich, but intelligence poor. They can describe what occurred, but they cannot explain what worked, why it worked, or how to do it again. Let me give you a real example from some of my work in consulting. So I was working with this large healthcare organization. They just completed, as all of us do at some point, a major leadership development program. Hundreds of leaders, excellent reviews. Everyone felt changed. There was some strong engagement to scores throughout. By every traditional measure metric, it was absolutely a success. 6 months later, the operational metrics the program was supposed to influence, manager effectiveness scores, staff retention, patient satisfaction in those leaders' units, hadn't moved. When we dug in using the Kirkpatrick model, we found that the program had taught the right behaviors, but leaders were returning to environments that actively suppressed those behaviors. Same competing priorities, same incentive structures, same workflow constraints that made the new approaches nearly impossible to sustain. The training worked. The system, though, didn't support it, and nobody had evaluated that system. That gap between what was delivered and what actually changed is where billions of dollars go every year. If you want to see And one way to light a bunch of money on fire, that is one of them. See, it's not because organizations are careless, it's because they've been measuring the wrong things. So why is this happening? Let me name 3 specific assumptions that are at the root of this problem. These 3 assumptions are deeply embedded in how most organizations operate. They feel like common sense. They've been baked into systems and processes for decades, and yet they're costing organizations enormously. So assumption 1, activity equals impact. This is the most pervasive assumption in organizational measurement. It's the idea that if we can count it, we've evaluated it. A training program with a 92% completion rate has not actually been evaluated. It's been counted. A technology rollout with 78% adoption hasn't been evaluated. It's been tracked. Activity metrics, they'll tell you that something happened. They say absolutely nothing, though, about whether anything changed as a result. And yet, in most organizations, completion rates and adoption dashboards are the primary evidence offered when leaders ask whether an investment delivered value. Think about your own organization's reporting. What do your dashboards track? What do you put in front of executives when you need to justify a program budget? If the answer is primarily participation, completion, and satisfaction, you're measuring activity, or what we're calling in the Kirkpatrick world, vanity metrics, not impact or performance intelligence. Assumption 2, evaluation belongs to a specific function, or I hear this one a lot, a specific human. Learning teams evaluate training. IT measures system adoption. HR runs the engagement surveys. Finance tracks operational metrics. Operations reviews process outcomes. Each function uses its own framework, its own language, its own definition of success. And the result is fragmentation. Every department has data about its own slice of an initiative, but no one has a coherent picture of whether that initiative actually produced the result it was designed to produce. The data exists in silos. The conversations happen in silos. The conclusions are then reached in silos. And because no single function has the full picture, the question of whether a major investment really worked, end to end, almost never gets a complete answer. Assumption 3, evaluation happens at the end. A program's launched, it's executed, and then sometimes weeks or months later, reviewed. A report is written, lessons are recorded, and by that point, the most important moments have already passed. The behaviors that need reinforcement in those first 30 days weren't reinforced. The barriers that should have been removed before launch were identified too late, or even known but ignored. The leading indicators that would have warned and signaled a failure went uncollected because nobody was doing that work. Retrospective evaluation produces postmortems. It doesn't produce intelligence. These assumptions made sense in a slower era. They cannot survive, though, the pace, scale, and cost of change in the modern enterprise. Leaders are being asked to make consequential decisions about AI, about talent, about technology, about transformation, faster, with less margin for error, against more scrutiny than at any point in recent history. The gap between what leaders need to know and what their evaluation systems tell them has become a strategic liability. Something has to change, and it starts with naming what we are replacing. So what does the alternative look like? Let me introduce you to the discipline. Enterprise performance intelligence is a discipline of generating real intelligence about organizational performance, not just activity data, not dashboards, not reports that describe what happened, but evidence-based clarity about what worked, why it worked, and how to improve or scale it across the enterprise. I want to be precise about what I mean by intelligence because it's a word that gets used very loosely. Intelligence is not the same as data. Data tells you what happened. Intelligence tells you what it means and what to do about it. Intelligence is actionable. Intelligence changes decisions. Intelligence enables leaders to say, with evidence, here is what produced results, here is why, and here's what we might need to do differently. The core principle of EPI is this. Every major investment an organization makes in change, whether human or technological, whether it's a training program or deploying AI, is a performance intervention. It is intended to produce a result, and its success can and should be evaluated using the same disciplined logic regardless of what kind of intervention it is. That logic begins with results, not activities. It identifies the behaviors, practices, and system changes required to drive those results. It examines the conditions, leadership reinforcement, incentives, process design, environmental factors that enable or undermine performance. And it tracks leading indicators continuously so that breakdowns can be diagnosed and corrected in time to matter. Before I go further, I want to be equally clear about what EPI is not, because there are several adjacent principles that people sometimes confuse it with. So let me show you these distinctions because they really matter. These four contra statements are some of the most important distinctions in the whole conversation. EPI is not learning analytics. Learning analytics measures consumption, who completed which course, how long they spent, what score did they earn, 80% or above. It answers the question, did people engage with the learning? EPI answers a different question. Did the learning produce the behavioral and business changes it was designed to produce? Learning analytics describes activity inside of a program. EPI describes the impact outside of it. They are not the same thing. Organizations that treat learning analytics as evaluation are measuring the wrong ends of the problem. EPI is also not HR analytics. HR analytics measures the workforce, engagement scores, attrition rates, demographic data, sentiment surveys, tells you the state of your people. EPI tells you whether what you're doing about that state is working. HR analytics, it's a diagnostic. EPI is an evaluation of the interventions that respond to that diagnosis. If your engagement scores are low and you run a culture initiative, HR analytics is going to tell you the score. EPI is going to tell you whether that initiative truly changed them and why. EPI is not performance management. Performance management evaluates individuals against goals. It's about the person. EPI evaluates the systems, programs, and initiatives meant to influence how those individuals perform. It's about the investment. If a performance management system shows that a sales rep is underperforming, that tells you something about the individual. EPI asks whether the training, coaching, tools, and environment provided to that rep were designed and evaluated effectively to elicit the performance they were looking for. Different question, different level of analysis. EPI is not business intelligence. Business intelligence describes business outcomes, revenue, margins, productivity, retention. It tells you what your numbers are. EPI explains what those numbers are, why those numbers are moving, which interventions influence them, what behaviors drove the change, what conditions enabled or undermined the result. BI tells you what happened. EPI tells you what worked, what didn't, and what to do next. These are not competitors to EPI. They are inputs to it. EPI is the discipline that integrates them into a coherent, intelligent system. One that actually connects activity to behavior, behavior to results, and results to the conditions that produce them. The methodology that makes EPI possible has been in existence for over 60 years. And let me show you what happens when we take it beyond learning and apply it to the enterprise. So this is the new Kirkpatrick model. It has been updated, it is out. It's the one that we are showing in training on in our new programs. See, most people in this audience, you know the Kirkpatrick model. In our world, we know the Kirkpatrick model. You know the 4 levels: reaction, learning, behavior, results. You may have been trained on it. Maybe not from us, maybe from a master's program, or you read about it in a book. You may even say that you use it regularly. What I'm about to share is not a replacement of what you know, it's an expansion of it. It's the evolution of it. It's the new era. So in this graphic, this is the new Kirkpatrick model. So no triangle with the levels, results at the very top with like a little peak. We do honor it here, but this is the Kirkpatrick model graphic. At the top, we start with results. It's level 4, it's the North Star. It's the organizational outcome that the initiative exists to influence: revenue, retention, productivity, safety, quality, engagement. Before any program is designed, results are defined. Then when you work inward, this is all level 3. We have the performance environment, our outer ring. This is everything in the context that enables or undermines behavior. Things like opportunity to apply, access to resource, manager support, peer support, incentives, psychological safety, organizational culture and norms, motivation or drive. This ring is often invisible in evaluation, but it's almost always the determining factor in whether behavior change is going to actually happen and stick. If the performance environment does not support the behavior, even the best designed interventions will fail. Then we've got performance support, the tools, job aids, coaching, reinforcement systems that help people perform correctly on the job. Then we've got the critical behaviors, level 3. The specific, observable, measurable things that people must do differently on the job for results to materialize. They're not competency, not general skills, specific behaviors. And so what I want you also to understand is the definitions have been updated and changed and moved out of just learning and training and been made more applicable for the entire enterprise. See, the thing with the levels, especially levels 1 and 2, people just think that they're nothing and they throw them away. We put them strategically where they are in this model because their education is a foundation. Learning is a foundation to the rest of this. It's not the most important. That's why they're smaller and off to the sides. But they need to support what you want to see out on the job. But the model alone isn't enough. The model is going to tell you what to measure and how to design. What actually determines whether this happens consistently across an organization is the culture around it. And let me show you what that looks like. Something I've observed consistently across organizations is that people who know the Kirkpatrick model deeply, there are people that are certified, there's leaders that can speak fluently about backwards design and leading indicators. They still often have an organization that can't execute evaluation at scale. And the reason is almost always the same. The culture doesn't support it. Individual capability is necessary, but it's not sufficient. A culture of evaluation is what turns individual knowledge into organizational practice. It's the difference between evaluation being something one talented person can do on a good project and evaluation being the way the organization actually works and functions. The culture of evaluation is built on 4 interconnected elements: commitment, collaborative framework and tools, the Kirkpatrick model, courage and trust, so important, and communication loops. This is the core concept to the book released today. The need for enterprise performance intelligence has always existed. What has changed, though, is the cost of not having it. 3 forces have made this gap untenable. The pace of change. Organizations today are not running one transformation at a time. They're running multiple major change efforts in parallel. AI adoption, digital transformation, restructuring, talent strategy shifts, cultural change initiatives, new technology platforms. Each of these requires its own evaluation and its own evidence. Evaluating each one retrospectively after the fact in isolation from the others produces fragmented postmortems that arrive too late to inform the next decision. And by the time the report is ready, the investment is already fully deployed and the window to adjust closed. The budget's been sent, the behaviors have calcified. The pace of modern organizational change demands continuous intelligence, not periodic reports. Leaders need to know what's working while there's still time to act on it. Budget scrutiny. The end of unmeasured investment, it's gone. I'm seeing this consistently across the organizations I work with, no matter the sector. CFO, boards, generals, leaders, executive teams, they're demanding evidence for every significant expenditure on people, technology, and change. It's no longer did we run the program, it's what did the program produce and how do we know? Programs that cannot produce credible evidence of impact, they will be cut. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but trust me, in the future it will. This is not a future threat. It is happening now in boardrooms and budget meetings across all industries. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about AI. As AI takes on more cognitive and operational work, the question of what humans contribute and how to develop, deploy, and retain that human contribution becomes more strategic, not less. And simultaneously, organizations are making massive investments in AI tools, platforms, and deployments that need to be evaluated with the same rigor as any other performance intervention. We have a whole chapter about it in the book. The organizations that will thrive in the next decade are not the ones that adopt AI fastest. They are the ones that can credibly evaluate which combinations of human and machine investments actually produce results and learn fast enough to adjust when they don't. This is no longer nice to have, y'all. It is the difference between organizations that learn, perform, innovate, scale, and organizations that don't. The organizations building this discipline now will compound the advantage. They will know what works. They will scale it intentionally. They will redirect resources away from what isn't working with evidence rather than politics. The organizations that don't will continue to invest, hope, and rationalize. So what do you do with this? Let me give you 3 specific moves for this week. So here are your 3 concrete actions. 1, pick your most expensive in-flight initiative and ask one question. This is not your most visible initiative, your most expensive one. The one with the biggest budget line, the most hours invested, the most organizational attention. Ask, what business result is this initiative supposed to produce? And is anyone tracking that result? Or are we tracking whether the activity is happening? If you can name the result clearly and point to someone who is monitoring it, great, you have a foundation. If the answer is vague or you're only tracking completion or participation, there's your starting point. This is not a blame exercise, this is a diagnostic. The goal is to get one initiative aligned to a result with a defined leading indicator and someone accountable for tracking it. And that one initiative is your benchmark. Move 2, look at your last successful program and ask the harder question. What was a program you recently celebrated? One that was declared a success, that got good reviews, that leadership was pleased with? Now I want you to ask yourself, can you prove that it worked? Not that it happened, not that people liked it, and not that it was well attended. Can you show evidence that behavior changed on the job? Can you connect that behavior change to a business result that moved? Can you say with confidence that the investment produced the outcome it was designed to produce? If the answer is yes, that's a story worth telling, and probably a story that isn't told loudly enough. If the answer is no, that's the most important data point you have for making the case for EPI within your organization. You are not failing. You're operating without the discipline, and there's a meaningful difference. Move 3, notice your language this week. This one is deceptively simple and surprisingly powerful. In every meeting, every report, every conversation this week, when someone says, that program went well, or it was successful, ask what they mean. Not confrontationally, with all due respect, but just curiously. What do you mean by successful? What changed? Watch what happens. In most organizations, the answer will be some version of activity. We delivered it. People liked it. We hit our targets. That answer tells you exactly where the organization is on the evaluation maturity journey. And in the book, you can check out where you are in your evaluation and your learning maturity journey. And every time you ask that question, you are doing two things simultaneously. You're gathering intelligence about the current state of your culture, and you're modeling the discipline, showing people what it looks like to hold the standard of evidence rather than settling for the comfort of activity. You don't need a new platform. You don't need a new tool. You need a new operating logic first, and the discipline to apply it consistently. That logic is in the book. These three moves are how you start applying it today. Speaking of the book, let me tell you give me 30 seconds to tell you where you can get it. So the book is out today from ATD Press. Thank you so much again to ATD. So you can grab it right from the ATD website. I will also be at ATD ICE next week in Los Angeles, and they will have some in the bookstore. You can also grab it on Amazon, Target on the app, and Barnes & Noble. So I look pretty cool because I'm on Target and Amazon to my daughter. So, have fun. And I want to say something brief about what the book is and isn't. You're not getting a how-to on the Kirkpatrick model. We have a whole educational suite available for you for that. There's already excellent resources. We have a whole Kirkpatrick collective for you to learn about it. This book is an argument. It argues that evaluation has been applied too narrowly and that the methodology is more powerful than most organizations have even started to realize. And that the organizations willing to build a genuine culture of evaluation will have measurable competitive advantage in the next decade. It's also a real practical book, built chapter by chapter around real context where organizations can apply the model. Instructional design, onboarding, leadership development, product launches, change management, even natural resource usage. We talk about it all. Every chapter applies the 4 levels directly to one of these contexts, with logic worked through from level 4 down. Before I forget, we also have AI in there, coaching, culture, employee engagement, change management, so much. I had the amazing privilege of writing this alongside with some extraordinary contributors, practitioners and researchers who brought depth and specificity to chapters that I just couldn't write alone. Their work makes this book significantly richer than anything I could have produced independently. The Kirkpatrick model came to be from the community, and that's what I wanted this book to be as well. So if you have not grabbed your copy of it, please do. There's a QR code in the book where you can go grab a companion guide, and I'm going to be dropping additionally some more resources, videos, a whole bunch of more content into the free course that we have alongside the book. I want to thank you all for being here. There is so much coming in the Kirkpatrick world. It's, EPI is just the start of it. We've got CADI, the tool that that's operationalizing the Kirkpatrick model and instructional design and all of those things. And we've got a lot of really good things on the horizon, and I want you all to be part of it. Also, if you grabbed a copy of the book, please make sure we're going to be sending out, posting a link on our social media, on our emails and all of that to show us your evidence that you purchased a copy of the book, and then you will be registered to receive be put into a drawing, to become a member of the Kirkpatrick Collective and start your journey and learn the new model, and even take our newest program, Performance Designer, which is all about Kirkpatrick instructional design. If you post when you get your book on social media, we are also going to be taking those folks and putting you in a drawing to get access to a year of CADI, which is that AI assistant I was just chatting about. So you will hashtag that, building a culture of evaluation, and that will need to be done by June 3rd. to be entered in the drawing. And then your book needs to be purchased by June 3rd as well to be entered into the drawing for collective memberships. Friends, I'm going to go into the chat, into the community. If there's any questions, I want to thank you all. And truly, this is what a day. What a day. I'm going to not cry. What a day. What a book. What a process to get here. Will I be at ATD Los Angeles? Yes, Jose, I will be at ATD, and the book will be sold there as well. Dan, the recording of this presentation should be available on LinkedIn afterwards. Oh, hi, Thea. Oh, Melanie was in the chat. Melanie is one of our contributors. Her and Dr. Ina contributed the chapter on learning transfer. So thankful that y'all could be here. Courtney, hi. She's selling my home for me right now. I'm supposed to be signing something. Hey, Brad. Hi, Susan. Want to just shout out Susan in the comments really quickly. Her team created the new visual of the model. It was the bane of my existence. I knew it was going to be the most difficult thing that I did. So I want to thank her and her team for doing that. All right, you all. Thank you all so much for being here, and I will catch you all on social media in Los Angeles. Make sure you come by and celebrate. And any questions, please always feel free to reach out. Talk soon, friends.